Welcome to Community Connections, brought to you by Synapsity, featuring conversations, stories, and interviews with Ottawa's leading changemakers. Enjoy this episode. On this episode of Community Connections, we spoke with Brandon Russell, candidate for the Somerset Ward in the Ottawa 2022 municipal election. Enjoy this episode. We're continuing our conversations with candidates from the Somerset Ward for the 2022 Ottawa municipal election. The Somerset Ward extends from Centretown to Little Italy. It is one of the densest and most diverse urban wards in the city, and it's set to have a brand new councillor after the election on October 24th. And today I'm joined by one of the candidates, Brandon Russell. He's currently serving as CEO of Russell & Team Inc., an all-partisan political strategy firm based in Ottawa, Ontario. Brandon runs the day-to-day operations, managing crisis, and mentoring key staff to run a stable and productive company that helps see the value of people. He aspires to further cultural policy that helps young people do what they love. He also has extensive... I need to back that up.
Yep, all good.
Today I'm joined by one of the candidates, Brandon Russell, currently serving as the CEO of Russell & Team Inc., an all-partisan political strategy firm based in Ottawa, Ontario. Brandon runs the day-to-day operations, managing crisis, mentoring staff to run a stable and productive company that helps see the value of people. He aspires to further cultural policy that helps young people do what they love. He also has extensive experience serving on various boards for nonprofits, political campaigns, parties, and organizations. Welcome, Brandon, to the Synapsity podcast.
Thank you for having me here. Super excited to chat about Somerset Ward and the election coming up. We're so close now.
Yeah, no, only a couple weeks away. And thanks to you for allowing us to record this in your downtown studio. We're right here in Somerset Ward, so it's pretty exciting. So let's start with a short introduction.
One of the many hidden gems of the ward, as I like to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's start with a little short introduction. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what qualifies you to be a councillor.
Definitely. So, as introduced, my name is Brandon Russell. I do run Russell & Team Inc., where I like to use the word politically agnostic, nonpartisan, apolitical, kind of all of those things to describe what we do. But in large part, we send people into the field to run political campaigns. I come from a background of running campaigns. I've ran campaigns for 9 different political parties, across the political spectrum in Canada and the United States. So... within that role, I've helped draft policy. I've helped, manage staff. I've worked with their central parties. I've worked with more electoral district associations than I can count. And, I've had so much fun doing that over the last number of years and decided that I can bring myself now into the public limelight and into the retail side of politics and offer my skills and experience with the ward and with our constituents here to improve lives and make our city a better place, or as I also like to say, to help dreamers become doers.
Absolutely. What a fabulous mission. And we know that Somerset Ward is very unique and diverse.
It is.
It touches many neighborhoods. What do you feel are some of the key issues facing the ward in the years to come?
So, as a ward that is as diverse as we are and as forward-thinking as we are and young and educated, our ward's main export and import, for that matter, is government staffers, is parliamentary staffers. We have a number of issues here, and I think we've got the right people to work together to combat them. Affordable housing in this ward is monumentally needed, and Somerset Ward has been largely neglected on everyone's favorite topic in municipal government, the planning committee. So we need to get representation in where our developments are going. We need to exclude councillors that are accepting developer contributions. I'm very proud to not be taking developer money in this campaign and don't think that any councillor should be allowed to. My plan offers 30% of all new housing that is built in multi-unit housing within this ward, so 10 or more units to be designated affordable. Have the city hire a chief housing officer that can manage that and ensure that we're living up to that mantra. We also have an addiction crisis in this ward, and ignoring it is not a solution. It's adding to the problem, or not effectively fixing it. So we need to work together with community groups, with different levels of government, and every factor involved and every stakeholder to really combat our addiction crisis. We also need to revitalize our parks, and those all tie into one another. Somerset Ward has a lot of parking lots, but sure as heck doesn't have a lot of parks. And the parks that we do have are being overran by our addicted and homelessness population. So we need to work together and find holistic solutions to real everyday problems.
Yeah, absolutely. Echo you on the green space. If we do want folks to come back downtown, we need to have those green spaces for them to come to, right? So
100%.
Great focuses there for sure. So as we know, we will have a new mayor after the election on October 24th.
Absolutely.
What would you like to see this mayor prioritize across the city? And how do you feel you'll be able to work with the successful candidate?
So first of all, I think that a new mayor allows Ottawa to enter into the dawn of a new era, turn a new chapter, whatever metaphor we want to use there. And I couldn't be more excited to work with whoever gets elected. In Somerset Ward, obviously our incumbent, Catherine McKenney, is running to be the next mayor, and would have the experience of knowing what issues we've got here. I also think that there's been great policies put forward by candidates across the spectrum. I've had the pleasure of meeting almost all of them at various events at the last 7 months. I've had very in-depth policy conversations with Brandon Bay and Mark Sutcliffe, and I've seen Catherine at a number of things too. So whoever wins this next mayoral election, I look forward to 9 a.m. on October 25th, having a conversation with them about the very real needs of Somerset Ward. And I feel like for far too long, and even what my opponents are saying on this race is encompassing the entire city, but we're not seeing real solutions for people in Somerset Ward. I've heard great solutions for getting internet into Cumberland from some of my opponents, but I'm not hearing solutions about the real day-to-day kitchen table issues that people across this ward are feeling. People are struggling to figure out where their next meal is coming from. They're not overly concerned about getting internet in Cumberland.
Yeah, no, great points. So we know housing is a hot-button issue. You've kind of touched on it, especially in Somerset Ward. Access to affordable housing is dwindling or almost non-existent. Many young people have had to shelve the dream of owning their own home. So let's dig a little deeper. How would you tackle the housing crisis? I know you mentioned the 30%. Let's talk a little bit more about that. Yeah, how would you tackle the housing crisis in front of us?
Absolutely. So, for every 7 affordable homes that we lose in Somerset Ward, or in the city in general, we can only manage to build 1. So we're losing affordable housing much, much, much faster than we're regaining it. At the same time, we have a cost of living crisis. I think that everyone can agree on that. So we're having more need for affordable housing. We're having less supply of it. So AKA demand is going up, supply is going down. We all saw how that worked with gas prices over the last couple of years, and housing is about to be very similar. We've all seen rent go up in the last number of years, and we've got the perspective. I'm a renter in this city. I have moved in the last year, so I understand that kind of scenario firsthand, and I've been through it. So I've seen what people have had to go through in this city. I've seen how, landlords are saying, well, you need to sign today. And it's this pressure going into it as well. But if we can take models that have worked across the country, across the world for that matter, with the 30% model, Montreal has done something similar. Toronto has done something similar. It's worked in Vancouver. It's worked in Santa Clara, California. It's worked in San Francisco. It's worked in Switzerland. It works across the world. And if Ottawa wants to continue to be a player on the global stage, which, including Somerset Ward, which has parliament in it, we need to be able to take a look across the world and say, this works, this doesn't. Let's learn from others' mistakes and not try and reinvent the wheel every day. I think that there's a lot of candidates too who seem to be talking a lot about renting rights that have owned $1 million homes. And I find those comments to be kind of tone deaf to what's really going on, because they're saying one thing and they're using very creative language to make it seem like they don't own $1 million home in the city, but they do. And push comes to shove, I truly don't think those candidates have the best interest of renters.
And so how does the 30% work? Is it the idea that if something is developed of a large size, developers have to put that 30% towards community housing?
So within a multi-unit development, so I'm not talking your ma and pa single family home, but if you want to build a 1,000-unit apartment complex within Somerset Ward, 30% of those units have to be designated affordable. So 300 of those 1,000 units would have to be considered affordable. We hire a chief housing officer within the city of Ottawa that can help manage and fulfill those 300 units, so that we're not putting that additional burden on the developer, so that the developer isn't having to hire additional staff. It's all coordinated throughout the city. So residents would pay their rent to the city of Ottawa, who would then pass that along to the developers. So it's all being handled throughout the city. So it's not putting additional expenses on developers. But also, it is developers giving back to their community as well. It's not charity, but it's also an effective solution that gets people into homes that's attached to the median household income, because if you make $200,000 a year in the city, you frankly shouldn't qualify for affordable housing. If you have a home worth $3 million and you're complaining about a 1% increase to property taxes, well, you're part of the problem in the city, not part of the effective solution that we need to work together to have.
Yeah, no, great point. And would those units have a stale date? Would they kind of exist for 10 or 20 years and then go back into the pool, or would it be throughout?
I think that I would be open to having the conversation of a stale date with developers, with people who need affordable housing. But I don't think that, putting a blanket term on it is effective, because essentially you're telling people that would move into these units that, okay, in 10 years you're going to have to relook. And it's not necessarily that I'm concerned about that tomorrow, but in 9.5 years, when someone wants to move into this development, saying, okay, well, you have 6 months, and then all of a sudden we have 900 affordable houses completely vanish from the market and they're becoming full market again. Well, then that's just going to create a crisis that we're passing along to the next generation, Band-Aid over a bullet hole. And, well, we've seen how that's worked in the past.
Yeah,
Spoiler, it hasn't.
Yeah, good point. So let's shift gears a little bit here. Let's talk about a little bit about climate and the environment. We know that's a major issue as well.
One of my favorite topics.
Yeah, so we've heard a lot about the climate master plan, energy evolution. We want to move towards a greener Ottawa. I don't know too many people who would suggest that we don't, but everybody's got different ideas. Do you support these programs, and what other climate projects do you want to see the city take on?
I do support most of our climate projects here within Ottawa. We need to aggressively get our carbon footprint down as a city. We need to, again, become a leader on the global stage, not a follower. Canada's in the G7. Again, Somerset Ward has parliament within it. Why are we, I guess, listening? And we're listening, but we're not learning. We're saying, well, maybe in 5 to 10 years we can take that approach. It's clearly working across the world, so take it now. We aggressively need to work on more climate solutions. We need more green space. Somerset Ward has the lowest tree coverage in the entire city of Ottawa at only 22%. There's a federal program to plant 2 billion trees across, is it 1 billion or 2 billion, something along those lines. We need to engage with the federal government, say, hey, let's pull our resources together and get those trees planted in Somerset Ward, get those trees planted in the city of Ottawa, so that we can take advantage of federal services, so that it's not draining our municipal budgets, which is only, we get 10 cents on the dollar of tax dollars, and we are expected to manage largely 30 to 40% of government services within municipal programs. So working with the federal government, who has our same goals in mind, to create effective change, is how we do it. When the right hand doesn't talk to the left hand, nothing gets done.
Yeah.
Same with the provincial governments.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We all need to be pointing towards that direction. 2030 is coming very fast, and we know some major targets for that and beyond, right? So,
what I think that people have a hard time realizing is that 2030 is less than 8 years away, but 1992 was 30 years ago.
Yeah, good point.
Conceptualizing it is half the battle. Is focusing on. We've heard 2030 for the last 20 years, right? So it's, we're getting to that now, especially after the last couple of years that we've had.
Yeah.
I still wake up some mornings and ask what day in 2020 it is, right? Because it's just been a blur.
Yeah, and especially when the city wants to do, I think the plan is over 300,000 heat pumps installed by 2030, but, Hydro Ottawa is charging people, thousands of dollars to have their meter upgraded, right? So there's sort of not necessarily complete synchronicity on some of the planning, right?
Not to mention that it takes hours to get on the phone with Hydro Ottawa just to spend thousands of dollars to contribute to the environment. Well, that's not exactly productive public policy here. That you've not engaged. It's bad from a business standpoint. It's bad from a climate standpoint because it's discouraging people from taking advantage of the resources, and it's bad from a human standpoint, from a government standpoint that's supposed to take care of its citizens. That's what I feel like we're not doing.
Yeah, no, great points. So transportation is another major topic. How would you improve transit options in your ward, and how would you encourage sustainable transportation around our city?
So I think that the LRT has a lot of great potential still that hasn't been utilized. I think that we can all agree that the LRT has been a little bit of a disaster over the last couple of years. And, when you build a product in a city that can get to -30, -40 in the winter, you should maybe make sure that one of your major transportation industries works, for that matter. 2, one that doesn't necessarily get struck by lightning. And if it does get struck by lightning, doesn't take months to repair. We see this across different transportation industries as well. An aircraft can get struck by lightning midair and continue to be able to fly, but the Ottawa train gets struck by lightning and it takes everything off service for 4 weeks. When I first moved to the city, we had was one of the last derailments, and I learned to walk most of downtown very quickly because the LRT was great for the weekend I moved here, and then the next 3 months it was, oh well, now you can't use it. I'm sorry. So we dangle this carrot to attract international talent, to attract domestic talent, but also just for people that live here. Whether you're a government staffer that lives closer to Bayview Station in Westboro, and you work on Slater Street, or you work on Albert Street or Queen Street, and you want to not have to drive a car, commit and add to our climate emissions, or you don't have a vehicle. I don't have a vehicle in this city. I rely on a lot of walking and public transportation. We have a failing transportation industry, and when we don't have something that works, as I was always trained as a child, fix it. Work together, have a conversation, and work with everyone you can to get something done.
Yeah, and in particular in Somerset Ward, fairly few people are advocating potentially a no-car zone or an EV-only zone, or, I've heard Brandon say, let's bring up the parking to $10 an hour. Are those some of the things you might advocate for?
I had a conversation with Brandon about that afterwards, and I think that he was explaining that if we had the transit to do that, we had the infrastructure to do that, it'd be a very different story. But it's not a feasible plan in 30 days, in 60 days. It's a feasible plan in 10 years when we have a robust, transit network. And it's safe to say that's not going to be built overnight. It's going to take a lot of people a long time to build an industry and build infrastructure that can adequately serve Ottawa, especially with our growth potential in Ottawa. I think that walking and EV transit and EV vehicles definitely needs to be encouraged, but and including, car-free zones like we have on Wellington Street right now, like we have on most of Sparks Street, are fantastic. And to quote Mark Sutcliffe, I'm not going to declare a war on cars. It's not productive. It creates more division. It doesn't adequately count towards a solution. You're just going to park 5 blocks away from the exclusion zone where there's going to be massive parking lots, which we already have too many parking lots in this city. And you're just either going to walk in negative 30-degree cold in the winter with your jacket and get frostbite and have to go wait in the Ottawa hospital, or it's going to create this domino effect that's going to be incredibly negative to our city.
Yeah, no, great points.
Let's improve infrastructure, not declare a war on cars.
Yeah. So transportation, climate, housing, all of these come with large financial costs.
That they do.
What is your philosophy around taxes and spending, and how should our city's budget work?
So when it comes to taxes in general, it's pretty well known that again, we get about 10 cents on every dollar when it comes to what you pay in your taxes. Where we have to make that up is within our property taxes. And I think that anyone should be incredibly wary about any candidate saying that we need to freeze or reduce property taxes in this city. We're expecting rapid growth, but also we don't need to increase property taxes on homes that are worth $200,000, $300,000, $400,000. But to the people who aren't paying their fair share of property taxes, those homes that are worth $1 to $4 million, and you've got your millionaires living way out in Canada that use a lot of services, that pay not their fair share of property taxes. I don't see that working. I say that we reduce property taxes on properties that are worth less than $400,000, on apartments, on people that are contributing. We give a property tax grant if you're using, specific Ottawa services like the hydrometers. Like you're saying, we give incentives. We freeze property tax rates for those middle class properties, those $400,000 to $700,000 that we're seeing, because that realistically is a new middle class property in Ottawa. We increase property taxes on properties over $1 million, and then we exponentially increase property taxes on homes over $3 million. By creating a tiered system that is robust, that works, and that is effective, as we've seen across the world, then we can have an Ottawa that is able to handle downturns in financial years, that is able to adequately provide services to its residents and to the community. It's able to fix your roads and potholes and your sidewalks, and that is, prosperous, that can keep a workforce, but that isn't unaffordable for residents.
Yeah, no, really, really good plan and some interesting ideas there as far as the tiers and things like that. So let's talk a little bit about diversity. We know that Somerset Ward is a very diverse ward. Why is diversity important to you? And how do you plan to represent a diverse Ottawa if you're elected?
From day one on this campaign, I've been saying that Somerset Ward in specific is one of the most diverse, one of the most progressive, one of the most forward-thinking, one of the most educated wards in this entire country. It's one of the most, it's got a population of new immigrants. It's got a population of UN employees. It's got a population of Parliament staffers. Almost every single member of Parliament has an address within Somerset Ward to conduct their parliamentary work. So there's a lot of great resources that I think that we could really effectively use to work with one another. One thing that I've been proposing is to have different levels of government actually meet and talk to one another. So having a roundtable with our Member of Parliament, Yasser, with our MPP, Joel Harden, with, the other city councillors that encompass the kind of Ottawa Centre bracket, with Capital Ward, with River Ward, with Kitchissippi Ward, even extending that over into Rideau Vanier, which faces a lot of the same diversity and urban challenges that we do here in Somerset Ward. I've spent a large part of my political career behind the scenes helping to get LGBTQ candidates elected, helping to get, queer candidates in general, helping to get Black candidates and Latino candidates elected. And within that, I think that if we talk between one another and we have programs to support diversity, that we can create an even more diverse and prosperous society. Same goes for Indigenous peoples as well. On this campaign trail, on National Truth and Reconciliation Day, I announced $5 million in funding from the city to create more local Indigenous projects, whether that's community centers, art projects. You know, if we can get the voices involved in the conversation, then I think that we're on the right track. And I think it's unwise to say that we would be able to accomplish this again overnight. But if we work together and we put in some elbow grease in it, we can achieve equity a lot faster.
Yeah. I think community, communication, and collaboration, sort of the big 3 C's, right?
Definitely. And that's what I love about Somerset Ward in particular, is we have people that are trained in this. We have people that do this every day that live in the ward that we can bring in. I've been talking about a ward council as well that can focus on predominantly subcommittees is what I'm talking about on the ward council. So we have a ward council that's, a subcommittee that talks about diversity, a subcommittee for Dundonald Park, a subcommittee for affordable housing. So if we have subcommittees that include government officials, that include elected officials, that include like civilians, that include the people that we serve, then I think that, again, we can get there a lot faster.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about community safety. When it comes to improving community safety, what issues come to mind as the most urgent to address, especially in the Somerset Ward?
100% without a doubt, it is the addiction crisis within our community. I'm going to get a little bit more specific than that and talk about Dundonald Park. It's one of the very last urban parks within our community, located just off Somerset and Kent. It's a beautiful park, and I think anyone that's lived here for a long time will remember the Tai Chi that used to get performed and the cultural significance of Dundonald Park. In a recent publication, Dundonald Park was compared to the living room of people that are struggling with homelessness, that are struggling with mental health crises, that are struggling with addiction crises. And I think that's a very unique perspective. I was chatting with some residents along James Street near the park, and those old Victorian era homes, which it's one of my favorite parts of the city, is that those kind of those lovely old homes that have so much history within them. And most of them are, generational owners. It was passed down to them. A lot of the folks there are older, and there's a lot of for sale signs. And I asked a resident, why are there so many for sale signs on this street? The homes are beautiful. People have lived here for generations. Why are they suddenly moving? And she said that we can't keep so much as a bike outside, or we can't keep, anything outside without it getting stolen. We can't walk down our streets without feeling somewhat unsafe. I was talking to one lady who carries pepper spray with her down that street, as it's become such a hot spot for people who are struggling in our community to get the basic needs, to get the basic things that they need by way of stealing. So I think that there is a spot for policing when it comes to that. And I know that's a hot button topic, but I think that there's a place for policing. There's a place also for increasing services, for having a holistic approach across the city, because we see a lot of people coming into Somerset Ward for services, which is then, depleting the city of those resources, and it's causing residents to relocate to Canada. It's causing residents to relocate to Old Ottawa South. It's causing residents to relocate elsewhere, and it's causing, big conglomerate landlord organizations to buy up these properties, to rent them out, which, as a couple of residents have pointed out, is destroying, they aren't taking great care of them. So it's depleting land value, it's depleting street appeal of a lot of these places, and overall, it's just a nightmare, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I remember, playing a couple games of chess in that park and doing some different things. What a park it is, right? And
absolutely.
It would be great if folks could use it a little bit more and feel that they could bring their families.
While doing so.
Yeah.
When I was younger and I used to go to a park back on the West Coast where I grew up with my family, I can 100% guarantee you that we would not have gone to Dundonald Park if we lived in Ottawa. It's unsafe for kids. It's unsafe for families. And there are a number of, items in the last number of years, a number of events, a number of, specifics that we can tell have shifted Dundonald Park in specific. And, I've said this a couple of times on the campaign trail. If you're 16 and you want to drink in this city, well, go to the beer store because they're not going to ID you. And I think that's very telling to what's going on in Dundonald. That beer store there has added to a lot of the problems. Now, I'm not saying a solution is just to remove the beer store and it's suddenly we're going to wake up and the clouds are going to be gone and the birds are going to be chirping in Dundonald Park. There's an LCBO very close nearby. So I think that, again, if we can take a holistic approach, deal with the root causes of mental health addictions, provide the services, and hold these businesses to account that are contributing to it, then I think we can achieve a Dundonald Park that residents love, that our city loves, that works.
Yeah, no, it's a great mission for sure. I'd love to see that. Let's pull out a little bit here and talk about Ottawa as a whole. We know our population is expected to grow by another 500,000 over the next 2 decades. I'm wondering, what is your long-term vision for Ottawa's future?
Absolutely. And, we just got updated results for even within Somerset Ward. Within the next 4 years, Somerset Ward is expected to add, I believe it's about 3,500 people to it. That's significant. We have 24 wards in this city. So if we're expanding in the next 4 years by, a large percent, it's about 8% in Somerset Ward. If we're expanding of that within the entire city, and then it's growing again year over year, we're going to see this city have so many more needs without being able to keep up. So this is where I talk about affordable housing. We think we're in a crisis now. Well, I can only imagine. I can't actually imagine what kind of a crisis we would be in if we don't act, if we just continue the status quo of what we're doing. That's why I'm excited for a new mayor to come in. I'm excited for fresh ideas at City Hall. I'm excited for, more. I'm excited to just see what people come up with. As a human civilization, when we get together and when we talk and when we come up with ideas, we can achieve so many great things. And, I think Ottawa needs to explore how we can become a leader in that.
Yeah, exactly. Human ingenuity can do pretty much anything, right?
It can. And also embracing our failures. How many things have been started by accident? Hey, insulin was an accident, if I'm not mistaken. Peanut butter was an accident as well.
Mm-hmm.
Reese's peanut butter cups. Sorry, peanut butter wasn't an accident. Reese's peanut butter cups were. So I think that, we've seen this across industries, across generations, across everything, that if we can embrace our people, then we can achieve some really incredible things.
Yeah, no, so true. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Brandon.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Are there some last words that you would like to leave the citizens of Ottawa on the eve of this election?
I think that in 2018, Ottawa had an incredibly low voter turnout. We saw that repeated again in 2022's provincial election and largely within the 21 federal as well. To quote Einstein, to repeat history is the definition of insanity. And I think that people just need to get out, make their voice heard, because that's the only way that we're going to have a city council with a mandate, a new mayor with a successful mandate to lead. And I'm encouraged by early voting numbers, which are just over 5% in Somerset Ward. But I want to see that. I won't stop canvassing until that's 100%, until every single voter can get out and turn out their vote. So please, regardless of who you're voting for, just get out and make your voice heard. It could not be easier this election cycle in Ottawa. So many apartment buildings have voting stations within them. Somerset Ward has 10 stations on election day. 23 buildings will have their own polling station on this coming Friday. So it could never be easier. You can vote in your car if you have a disability. You can You can even give your proxy to someone early. So please, there's no excuse in this election. Get out and vote, and let's build a better Ottawa for all.
Yeah, that's a great message. Thanks again, Brendan, and
Thank
best
you for
of luck
having
with
me.
your campaign.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for watching Community Connections, brought to you by Synapse. Be sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content like this. Until next time, stay connected.